Hi everybody, we'll be starting the webinar in about 1 minute. We'll start the webinar in about 1 minute. Hi everybody, we'll be starting the webinar very shortly and we're just going to put the screen on hold for a moment. Hi, good evening everybody. Welcome to our presentation this evening. My apologies that we're running a moment or two late. So thank you for coming to our webinar this evening. And the title of our webinar is Costa Rica a Good Investment Opportunity? So we conduct these webinars every Thursday afternoon or evening or even morning, depending on where you are in the world. And you can always go to the front page of our website, www.costaricainvest.ie, and you can find what our forthcoming webinars are. We also record all of these webinars, and in the free downloads and media area of our website that you can see there on your screen, if you go into that area of the website, again, www.costaricainvest.ie, you can find recordings of previous webinars on various topics. Those are our contact details there. If you need to travel to Costa Rica and would like to see one of our projects in Costa Rica, Everything Costa Rica handles all of our travel requirements for all of our clients, and Tracy from Everything Costa Rica can look after your travel requirements, tours, accommodation, car hire, everything you need to make your trip to Costa Rica very enjoyable. Again, on our website, if you go to the services area of our website that you can see there, there's a little tab saying Travel to Costa Rica. And if you click on that, it brings you to a screen, something like this, that you can fill in your details. And it's also got some suggestions for things that you would like to do whilst you're in Costa Rica. And Tracy can then contact you and pick up on all of those details and help you organize your trip. Everything Costa Rica also carries out tours of the Pacific coast and the Pacific coastal region, specifically to look at real estate in that area. These tours include 5 nights accommodation, well 5 days, sorry, 4 nights accommodation and 4 days touring around various projects. If you're interested in the Central Pacific area but aren't entirely sure which area might suit you and what the positives and perhaps negatives of some different areas are, these tours are ideal for giving you a real insight into the Central Pacific. So, what are we talking about today? Well, is Costa Rica a good investment opportunity? And before we jump right into that, a little bit about me. My name is James Cahill. My company is Costa Rica Invest. We're an international sales and marketing company, and we have for the past 5 years specialized at selling Costa Rican investments. We have consultants working worldwide with consultants based in Canada, the USA, United Kingdom, Costa Rica, Ireland, United Arab Emirates, and Spain. And most of the developments that we work with are ecological hybrid investment and development opportunities. The companies that we choose to work with all have a very high level of success, and we're sticklers for detail and always carry out a very thorough due diligence before we agree to work with any company. We only look at opportunities in Costa Rica that have high potential yields for our clients, and we're particularly interested in those that have an ecological aspect to them. In addition to selling, of course, we're a referral service for all things Costa Rica, and we can help you with legal assistance, immigration, travel, investment, and banking. So, on to the question at hand. Is Costa Rica a good investment opportunity? Well, obviously today we're going to investigate that a little further. We're going to talk a little bit about Costa Rica. We're going to talk a little bit about the economy of Costa Rica, obviously, real estate in Costa Rica, and we're going to pick on some very specific opportunities at the end of the presentation and run through those in a little bit of detail. It won't take very long. So let's jump right in. I know that most of you on the call this evening are very familiar with Costa Rica. I recognize many of the names on the call this evening. But for those of you that perhaps aren't familiar with Costa Rica, a little bit of background on Costa Rica. Well, first of all, where is it? Well, it's in Central America. It is the oldest and most stable democracy in Central and Southern America. It has more teachers than policemen, and it has no army. It's often referred to as the Switzerland of Latin America, and it has a literacy rate of 96%. This year, they're going to spend more than 25% of their entire national budget on education. Now, Costa Rica has a fantastic climate. It's tropical year-round. In fact, they have 266 days of complete sunshine every year and an average temperature of 25 degrees. People in Costa Rica live longer than most other places in the Western Hemisphere, with an average lifespan of 79 years of age. Costa Rica is located at the intersection of two very large continents, obviously North and South America, and it contains over 5% of the world's biodiversity. That's an incredible 1 in 20 of every living thing on this planet lives in a little country in Central America, and that country is Costa Rica. Costa Rica also ranks very, very highly in a number of polls. 3 years ago, they were ranked 5th in the world in terms of environmental performance. 2 years ago, they were ranked 3rd in the world in terms of environmental performance. This year, we're waiting for that study to come out again, and they want to be number 1. Costa Rica is the 7th most politically and socially stable country in the world. And that's a figure or a fact that often staggers people. And that study is carried out by the Economist Intelligence Unit, that the 7th most socially and politically stable country in the world is located in Central America. Costa Rica is ranked number 1 in the world in the Happy Planet Index. And that study is carried out every year by the NEF Research Group. And I thought at this point we might hear a little bit from Nick Marks, who gives a different view as to the value and wealth of a nation, and specifically talks a little bit about Costa Rica.
Martin Luther King did not say, "I have a nightmare," when he inspired the civil rights movements. He said, "I have a dream." And I have a dream. I have a dream that we can stop thinking that the future will be a nightmare. And this is going to be a challenge, because if you think of every major blockbusting film of recent times, nearly all of its visions for humanity are apocalyptic. I think this film is one of the hardest watches of modern times, The Road. It's a beautiful piece of filmmaking, but everything is desolate. Everything is dead. And just a father and son trying to survive walking along the road. And I think the environmental movement, of which I am a part of, has been complicit in creating this vision of the future. For too long, we have peddled a nightmarish vision of what's going to happen. We have focused on the worst case scenario. We have focused on the problems. And we have not thought enough about the solutions. We've used fear, if you like, to grab people's attention. And any psychologist will tell you that fear in the organism is linked to the flight mechanism. It's part of the fight and flight mechanism. That when an animal is frightened, think of a deer. A deer freezes very, very still, poised to run away. And I think that's what we're doing when we're asking people to engage with our agenda around environmental degradation and climate change. People are freezing and running away because we're using fear. And I think the environmental movement has to grow up and start to think about what progress is. What would it be like to be improving the human lot? And one of the problems that we face, I think, is that the only people that cornered the market in terms of progress is a financial definition of what progress is, an economic definition of what progress is. That somehow, if we get the right numbers to go up, we're going to be better off. Whether that's on the stock market, whether that's with GDP and economic growth, that somehow life is going to get better. This is somehow appealing to human greed instead of fear, that more is better. Come on, in the Western world we have enough. Maybe some parts of the world don't, but we have enough. And we've known for a long time that this is not a good measure of the welfare of nations. In fact, the architect of our national accounting system, Simon Kuznets, in the 1930s said that a nation's welfare can scarcely be inferred from their national income. But we've created a national accounting system which is firmly based on production and producing stuff. And indeed, this is probably historical. It had its time. In the Second World War, we needed to produce a lot of stuff. And indeed, we were so successful at producing certain types of stuff that we destroyed a lot of Europe and we had to rebuild it afterwards. And so our national accounting system became fixated on what we can produce. But as early as 1968, this visionary man, Robert Kennedy, at the start of his ill-fated presidential campaign, gave the most eloquent deconstruction of gross national product that ever has been. And he finished his talk with the phrase that the gross national product measures everything except that which makes life worthwhile. How crazy is that our measure of progress, our dominant measure of progress in society, is measuring everything except that which makes life worthwhile? I believe if Kennedy was alive today, he would be asking statisticians such as myself to go out and find out what makes life worthwhile. He'd be asking us to redesign our national accounting system to be based upon such important things as social justice, sustainability, and people's well-being. And actually, social scientists have already gone out and asked these questions around the world. This is from a global survey. It's asking people, what do they want? And unsurprisingly, people all around the world say that what they want is happiness for themselves, for their families, their children, their communities. Okay, they think money is slightly important. It's there. But it's not nearly as important as happiness. And it's not nearly as important as love. We all need to love and be loved in life. It's not nearly as important as health. We want to be healthy and live a full life. These seem to be natural human aspirations. Why are statisticians not measuring that? Why are we not thinking of the progress of nations in these terms instead of just how much stuff we have? And really, this is what I've done with my adult life, is think about how do we measure happiness, how do we measure well-being, how can we do that within environmental limits? And we created at the organization I work for, the New Economics Foundation, something we called the Happy Planet Index. Because we think people should be happy and the planet should be happy. Why don't we create a measure of progress that shows that? And what we do is we say that the ultimate outcome of a nation is how successful is it at creating happy and healthy lives for its citizens. That should be the goal of every nation on the planet. But we have to remember that there's a fundamental input to that, and that is how many of the planet's resources we use. We all have one planet. We all have to share it. It is the ultimate scarce resource, the one planet that we share. And economics is very interested in scarcity. When it has a scarce resource that it wants to turn into a desirable outcome, it thinks in terms of efficiency. It thinks in terms of how much bang do we get for our buck. And this is a measure of how much well-being we get for our planetary resource use. It is an efficiency measure. And probably the easiest way to show you that is to show you this graph. Running horizontally along the graph is ecological footprint, which is a measure of how much resources we use and how much pressure we put on the planet. More is bad. Running vertically upwards is a measure called happy life years. It's about the well-being of nations. It's like a happiness-adjusted life expectancy. It's like quality and quantity of life in nations. And the yellow dot there you see is the global average. Now there's a huge array of nations around that global average. To the top right of the graph are countries which are doing reasonably well in producing well-being, but they're using a lot of planet to get there. They are the USA, other Western countries going across in those triangles, and a few Gulf states in there actually. Conversely, at the bottom left of the graph are countries that are not producing much well-being, typically sub-Saharan Africa. In Hobbesian terms, life is short and brutish there. Average life expectancy in many of these countries is only 40 years. Malaria, HIV, AIDS are killing a lot of people in these regions of the world. But now for the good news. There are some countries up there, yellow triangles, that are doing better than global average, that are heading up towards the top left of the graph. This is an aspirational graph. We want to be top left, where good lives don't cost the earth. They're Latin American. The country on its own, up at the top, is a place I haven't been to. Maybe some of you have. Costa Rica. Costa Rica. Average life expectancy is 78.5 years. That is longer than in the USA. They are, according to the latest Gallup World Poll, the happiest nation on the planet than anybody, more than Switzerland and Denmark. They are the happiest place. They are doing that on a quarter of the resources that are used typically in Western world. A quarter of the resources. What's going on there? What's happening in Costa Rica? We can look at some of the data. 99% of their electricity comes from renewable resources. Their government is one of the first to commit to be carbon neutral by 2021. They abolished the army in 1949. And they invested in social programs, health and education. They have one of the highest literacy rates in Latin America and in the world. And they have that Latin vibe, don't they? They have the social connectedness. The challenge is that possibly, and the thing we might have to think about, is that the future might not be North American, might not be Western European. It might be Latin American.
So there we have it. The future might not be North American and Western European. According to Nick Marks and the New Economics Foundation, Costa Rica is an extremely wealthy country, happiest nation on earth. So a few more things about Costa Rica. As I mentioned, it's the 7th most socially and politically stable country in the world. It's in fact the most prosperous country in Latin America. That study is carried out every year by the Legatum Prosperity Index. As I mentioned previously, and as Nick Marks mentioned, more than 25% of Costa Rica's surface area has been preserved as natural park and forest reserve, never to be developed. Now, Costa Rica plans to be carbon neutral as a nation by 2021, which is the 200th anniversary of their independence. As Nick Marks mentioned, more than 99% of their energy requirements come from renewable resources. And 20 years ago, they invested hugely in hydroelectric, wind and geothermal power. At that time, other countries thought they were crazy. These were expensive technologies, and of course, oil was very, very cheap. Now, 20 years later, other countries look to Costa Rica and the inspired decisions that they made 20 years ago. So Costa Rica may be a small country, but it's got very big goals. They plan to be carbon neutral by 2021, and they're going to achieve this through various channels, one of which is the planting of more trees. Last year, they planted 7 million trees. That's more per head of population than anywhere else in the world. But to achieve this goal of carbon neutrality, they're going to have to plant even more trees. So they're going to have to preserve more land, and that's going to add to the value of existing development land. Costa Rica is a very, very attractive tourist destination, and the tourism industry is worth over $2 billion a year to Costa Rica, and they intend to grow that further and to concentrate specifically on ecotourism. And tourism in Costa Rica is booming. Just look on the TV. Where do the celebs go on holiday? Costa Rica. Tourist numbers in Costa Rica are rising all the time, and last year there was a significant increase in tourist numbers over the previous years. But Costa Rica is not interested in the one-off visitor. They want people to come again and again and again, and preferably own a home in Costa Rica, so those dollars are spent in Costa Rica rather than in other destinations. To do this, they've made the process of emigrating to Costa Rica very straightforward. And you and I have the same land and property ownership rights as a Costa Rican citizen, and that's enshrined in the Costa Rican Constitution. You and I can own and buy and sell property in Costa Rica without restriction. And this makes Costa Rica very, very different to many of its neighbors, where you cannot own property yourself and need complex structures with local partners to get involved in property. And the exodus has already begun. More than 1% of the population of Costa Rica is already North American expatriates and retirees, and more are flocking southward daily. In fact, more than 25,000 Canadians now call Costa Rica their primary home. And why are they coming to Costa Rica? Well, of course, they're looking for a lower cost of living, stability, a stable political environment, access to great healthcare, and a fantastic climate. Remember, I mentioned the average daily temperature in Costa Rica at 25 degrees and 266 days of full sunshine per year. The cost of living in Costa Rica is about 50% of the same cost of living in Canada or the USA. And healthcare is a fraction of the price. In fact, so much so that medical tourism is a booming business in Costa Rica. So you can imagine living in a beautiful climate, in a safe place with great healthcare for a fraction of your current cost of living. But Costa Rica is not just a pretty place to sit on the beach. Costa Rica has also diversified its economy and now generates a large portion of its revenue through high-tech medical and other manufacturing industries. Companies like Microsoft, Dell, Hewlett-Packard, Intel, Johnson & Johnson all have their Central and Southern American headquarters in Costa Rica. And why are they located in and locating in Costa Rica? Well, they're looking for a combination of political stability, lucrative tax breaks, and a highly educated workforce, and low labor costs. These companies have direct investments in Costa Rica totaling billions and billions of dollars. But these taxation benefits don't just apply to multinationals. Costa Rica is a personal tax haven, and with planning, you can achieve a very, very low or even no tax situation for yourself and your family. So to sum up, Costa Rica is very business friendly, has huge eco aspirations, it's stable, it's safe, it's got excellent healthcare. What do other countries and agencies think about the Costa Rican economy? Well, the International Monetary Fund issued a very, very positive report on Costa Rica at the beginning of last year. They said that economic recovery in Costa Rica was firmly underway, and they highlighted that economic growth rose in the second half of 2009 and had remained strong at the beginning of 2010, that a supportive fiscal policy had boosted recovery and inflation had moved to low levels. And was the IMF correct in their report? Well, absolutely they were. Exports were up by 16.8% for the year 2010 when compared to 2009. And the economy grew by 4.5%. And this year, Reuters is suggesting that the economy in Costa Rica will grow by 5%. So very, very positive economic news for Costa Rica. Let's talk a little bit about land and real estate in Costa Rica. There are two drivers which are going to affect land prices over the short to medium term in Costa Rica. The first of which is baby boomer retirees. Over 100 million baby boomers are going to retire over the next decade. Some estimates suggest that up to 20% will seek to retire abroad. And when they look to retire abroad, they're going to look for safety, good climate, quality healthcare, lower cost of living. Now, Costa Rica ticks all of these boxes. But of course, Costa Rica couldn't possibly take in 20 million retirees. Costa Rica right now has a population of 4 million, but a significant number will look to Costa Rica. And these boomers, as a demographic, are armed with more money than at any time in history of the world. And this spike in demand is ultimately going to push up property prices and real estate prices in Costa Rica. The second big driver for land price growth is Costa Rica's eco plans. Do you remember I mentioned they plan to be carbon neutral as a nation by 2021, and the fact that 25% of the surface area is already zoned as natural park and forest reserve? Well, the aspiration to be carbon neutral means that they're going to have to preserve more land and plant more trees. And if you do a simple Google search at the beginning of this year, you will see that Costa Rica has secured funding to preserve a further 1% of its surface area, rising from 25 to 26%. So there's going to be less land available to develop, and at the same time a large influx of people armed with money to spend wanting to be part of the Costa Rican dream. So, is Costa Rica a good investment opportunity? Well, I certainly believe so, and hopefully I've given you some facts and figures that you can mull over there, which will make you feel the same. Now, at this point in time, I thought we might just cover very briefly some of our specific opportunities, give you some general details. Now, we represent a number of real estate investments in Costa Rica. Each one is a great investment for price appreciation. We cannot cover them all in a session such as this, but we feature a couple. Before we get into some specific examples, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the Central Pacific area of Costa Rica. It's the strongest resort area in Costa Rica and the oldest. It has the most developed infrastructure, including hospitals, best access, which includes roads, bridges, airports. And a new freeway from the capital San Jose was completed at the beginning of this year, and that has cut travel time dramatically from the capital and the international airport to the beach. There's a huge new marina in Capos, and that opened about 4 months ago. And this is just a sample of the very large infrastructural developments going on in this area. First of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about Nature Walk, which is our ecological eco-mountain resort community. And it has some very special characteristics. First of all, it's away from the beach, so you're not paying inflated beach prices. Secondly, it has a valuable commodity attached to the real estate, teak forestry. And this is on all of the lots sold. This gives you a double return, land investment and commodity investment. It's a very ecologically sound development with a well-developed master plan, and it's going to produce a lifestyle environment that will make Nature Walk the ultimate destination resort community for Costa Rica. Nature Walk's total resort eco-community has planning underway for a hotel lodge, equestrian center, mountain spa, and teak homes. This is a sample of our infinity homes. These are all made with sustainable teak. Excuse me. Nature Walk is still very affordable, and you can purchase 3 lots for under $100,000. And you can expect that the returns from the teak will pay for your purchase in a 7-year period. The land effectively then is a free bet. You can build your dream vacation, home or rental, or simply sit with the teak and land investment and let your investment grow. Now, investment in some categories of lots is extremely limited at this point in time, so I strongly encourage you to take advantage while inventory still exists and prices are still reasonable. Nature Walk also has a biofuel and land opportunity, which provides regular yearly income. Nature Walk is going to launch their hotel condominium offer over the next month, and we already have a significant standby list for those condos. So if you're interested in those, please contact us and get on that waiting list. Now, for those of you who would like an immediate residence or rental vacation property, I'm going to introduce you to Hacienda Pacifica. This is a 20-unit gated community project. Now, 6 of the units are sold and 14 remain, and it's in Manuel Antonio. These are brand new. They were completed 2 months ago. These condominiums are value priced, and they're tens of thousands less than other comparable condominiums in the area. I'll just run through some of the features. They're $175,000 for 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and they have 1,600 square feet of total area. They're fully furnished and equipped, and if you're buying a vacation rental, you'll love these because they rent very, very easily, and we can go over those rental numbers offline if these are of interest to you. It's security entranced and gated, and financing is available with a 25% down payment. They're located, as I mentioned, in Capos, and the National Park in Manuel Antonio is effectively right on your doorstep, and the beaches are a couple of kilometers away. The ocean is, well, in fact, 3 kilometers away from these condos. It's located in the fun town of Capos, and Capos has restaurants, shopping, and of course this new marina, and you can see the new marina there. So how can you take advantage of these opportunities? Well, first thing to do would be to talk to one of our consultants. They'll have a discussion with you and really get a better understanding of exactly what you're looking for, what your needs and requirements are, and then they can direct you to the information that you need to make a decision. If you'd like to see before you buy, we have a fly and buy program, and our consultants can discuss this with you as well. You can take advantage of a 5-day, 4-night tour of the Central Pacific region of Costa Rica, and if you end up confirming your purchase, the developer will pick up your travel costs. Now, this is only available to people who are able to reserve a lot or one of the condos in Hacienda Pacifica and able to travel in the short term, and that's within 21 days. So how do you contact us and register your interest? Well, you can send us an email to info@costaricainvest.ie, or you can call us. There's our European number, 3531-272-4184 for those of you located in Europe, and our US number is 866-990-1123. So, if you're seriously interested in Costa Rica as an investment opportunity, now is the time to take action. And I strongly advise you to contact us right away, and we will get you the information that you need to make a decision. Now, I didn't mention at the beginning of the presentation, but I do have some time to take some questions. And if you look on the right-hand side of your screen, there is a little control panel. And in that area there, you'll see an area that you can ask some questions in. You can type in your questions, and I can get to as many of those questions as I can before the end of the webinar. So if anybody has any questions about any aspect of Costa Rica, be it investing in Costa Rica, how to go about it, or anything on our specific projects, feel free to type in your questions, and I'll get to as many of them as I can. Just whilst I'm waiting for some questions to come in, one thing to make you aware of, if you're located in the US or in Canada, in the US, you can use your 401k or your IRA to invest in property and investments in Costa Rica. Now, if you use your IRA or 401k to buy a condo or land investment and then subsequently build on the land investment, you can't actually use the condo or the villa yourself. It has to be purely for investment purposes. Our friends in Canada have a significant advantage. If you have an RRSP in Canada, you can structure it to buy yourself a condo or a villa in Costa Rica, and you can actually use that yourself. It's not a loophole. It's allowed. It's allowed under the under the Canadian RRSP requirements. And if you would like details on either using your 401k or your IRA or your RRSP to invest, we have full programs available for all of those investments and can assist you with those as well. Okay, we have a question in. Are all of your properties located in the Central Pacific region? Do you offer any in the Northern Pacific region? Yes, no, we have, through a network of relationships that we have throughout Costa Rica, we've access to properties throughout Costa Rica. So no matter where if you have a specific requirement to have a property either in the northern Pacific region, perhaps up in Tamarindo, Guanacaste, or in the southern zone, or in right over on the Caribbean coast, or in the central area. We can assist you in locating those properties and assist you with that. So we have access to a whole range of properties. Obviously, our own particular developments, we're very fond of those, but it's not about forcing those down your throat. It's about finding the ideal property for you. And so if you specifically have a requirement to have a property somewhere else, we'd be delighted to help you with that and assist you in that process. Okay. The next question that I have was, what is the price of the Hacienda Pacifica condos? Okay, they're 175,000 US dollars. As I mentioned, they're 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 1,600 square feet in total area. They're fully furnished. That's fully furnished. They come with all of the. You can literally walk in the door and you're ready to go. They've got fridge, cooker, tables, chairs, TV. Everything that you need. So they're ideal if you want a condo that you can literally walk straight into right away, or alternatively if you're looking for a vacation rental, or if you're looking for both, a condo that you can use and will rent very easily. They're absolutely ideal. They're located in Quepos. Quepos, as many of you probably know, is the town that borders right on Manuel Antonio. Manuel Antonio, of course, is very famous for its national park. It's the smallest national park in Costa Rica, but it is the most popular. It is the most visited national park in Costa Rica. It has a tremendous biodiversity, and what's also very attractive for many people is that the beaches in Manuel Antonio, of course, are white sand beaches, very, very beautiful beaches. So lots of people are very fond of those white sand beaches. Okay. Next question that I've got is, where is Nature Walk located? Nature Walk is located just outside of Jaco. It's in the hills behind Jaco. It's about 15 kilometers, which is about, 9 miles, 9.5 miles, as the crow flies. It's about the same distance, slightly less, to Estrecho. Estrecho is the closest beach, actually. Estrecho Beach, it was the site of the World Surfing Championships in 2008 or 2009. So quite recently the World Surfing Championships were there. Very beautiful beach. As I mentioned, Nature Walk is in the hills behind Jaco. And many people, when they go to Costa Rica first, they have a desire to be right on the beach or to be very close to the beach. Most of the locations close to the beach are actually quite flat, so you don't actually see the sea from many of the locations, say within 10 minutes or 15 minutes of the beach. You can't actually see the sea in many of these locations. And it also gets very, very hot, particularly in the dry season. So the great advantage to being slightly in the hills is that it's significantly cooler, and you get a nice cooling breeze blowing through. So those are the advantages of being in the hills as opposed to being on the sea. Okay, the next question I have is, how do I use my RRSP to invest? Okay, the RRSP is a personally administered pension in Canada, and broadly speaking, it would work as follows. If you have funds in your RRSP, so that's the first requirement, and you have a property in Canada, on which you can generate a commercial or a commercially viable mortgage. You can issue funds against the mortgage, and you can use those funds to purchase in Costa Rica. The mortgage is then repayable back to the RRSP, there are multiple tax advantages to this. Number one, you're paying the interest plus the repayment of capital back into your RRSP fund. It can be done on a commercial level, so you're achieving quite a nice return. You can use the funds that you release to purchase your property in Costa Rica. And the great advantage for our Canadian friends is that you can actually use that property in Costa Rica yourself. If you were doing the same type of process with your 401k or IRA for US citizens, you cannot use the property in Costa Rica for your own personal use. It has to be purely for investment use. So that's the fundamental difference between the two. Now, I realize that sounds quite complex, that there are other little complexities to it. You have to use a registered mortgage or RRSP supervisor, one of the banks, to oversee it. The mortgage has to be on a commercial basis. However, having said that, whilst it sounds quite complex, we have a full RRSP program in place, and all you need to do is contact us, and we can go through that process for you and with you and help you to do that. And it's quite efficient, quite quick. It takes about a month or 6 weeks to set up. Sort of similar to the 401ks and IRA investments as well. Okay. Okay, next question is, do we only sell land in Nature Walk? No, there are homes available in Nature Walk. Well, there are multiple types of properties available in Nature Walk. I suppose we have people who have just invested in land in Nature Walk. Some of them are pure investors, so they have invested in some land that has the added advantage of an agricultural commodity growing on it. The returns from the agricultural commodity will cover the cost of the purchase of the land, and then many of those pure investors plan to sell the land on for development in 7 to 10 years' time. So that's what many of our pure investors are doing. The majority of our land investors in Nature Walk or land purchasers in Nature Walk plan to build on that land themselves and develop that land themselves. Now, PRG, the developers of Nature Walk, have a home building arm. It's a timber home building arm, and they specifically plan to use the teak from Nature Walk in the build of those homes in Nature Walk. There are a number of, if you like, planned home types available, but of course you can have a bespoke home as well, depending on what your particular preference is. Those homes start from our entry-level homes at about $100,000 and run right through to, well, as big or as much as you want to pay. We have our condo opportunity, which is our condo hotel opportunity, the Carrara National Eco Lodge. That is scheduled to start construction at the end of this year and is scheduled for a soft opening in advance of the high season next year. So it's scheduled for a soft opening in October of next year, and then it's going to be fully open for the high season next year. So there are condos available in that. Now, many of the condo investors are pure investors. They plan to just invest in a condo and effectively rent it out. But we have some people who plan to own the condo for their own personal use and also rent it out at some times of the year. And we perhaps will have others who plan to spend all of their time in the condos. Of course, the Carrara National Eco Lodge comes with many, many other facilities. There'll be restaurants, bars, spa, and all of the other facilities that come with a five-star hotel development. Okay. Next question is, what is the Fly and Buy program? Okay, well, our Fly and Buy program is for those clients who wish to travel to Costa Rica to look at our particular projects and would like to obviously see before they buy. The way it works is as follows. You reserve, in Nature Walk, for instance, you would reserve one of our lots of land. You would pay a deposit. The deposit is fully refundable, and then you would travel within 3 weeks to have a look at the land. If you're happy with your particular piece of land, you will go ahead with the purchase. A further deposit is payable, and nothing else is payable until title transfers. And that deposit, just to highlight, that deposit is 15%. It's a 15% deposit that you pay to begin with. It's fully refundable. If you travel down and then decided not to go ahead, that 15% is fully refundable. If you decide to go ahead, then you would sign the purchase agreement, pay a further 15%, and then nothing further is payable until title is transferred to you. Depending on where in Nature Walk you're investing, would determine how quickly that title is transferred to you. The teak lots are transferring within about 6 to 8 weeks, and the biofuel lots, and again it depends which of the biofuel lots you're buying. If you're buying in the first tranche, they will be ready to transfer really in about 3 weeks from now. Second tranche would take about 6 to 8 weeks, similar to the teak lots. Hacienda Pacifica works on the same basis. You would reserve one of the apartments prior to going down. Your reservation deposit is fully refundable. You would travel down, have a look, and if you like what you see, and go ahead. Then you take advantage of the buy and fly program, I should say the fly and buy program, where the developer will pay your travel costs. Your travel costs include your flight down and also your stay in a hotel in the area. We have, if you're going to look at the Hacienda Pacifica, the condos, it obviously makes sense that you would stay in the condos, and those costs would be picked up. Alternatively, if you're looking at Nature Walk, we have a relationship with a number of hotels very close to Nature Walk, and you would stay in one of those hotels. And obviously, if you wanted to look at both or many of them, you would stay in your pick, and then we would work from there. Okay, we're coming to the 45 minutes. We know, so I've run very slightly over. So if you have any further quick questions, please send them to me. Otherwise, I think we've got to the end of all of the questions there. Hopefully, I've managed to answer them all. My apologies if I've missed any. If I have missed any, I will run through the questions and identify who had asked them, and I will email you the answers separately afterwards. So as I mentioned, if you are seriously interested in investing in Costa Rica, which I certainly believe is a very good investment, please contact us. Send us an email to info@costaricainvest.ie or give us a call. Europe, 353-1272-4184, USA, 1-866-990-1123. Give us a call, and we'll organize for you to speak with one of our consultants, one of the consultants located close to you, and they can really get an understanding of what you're looking for, what you're trying to achieve. And once they've got a better understanding of what you're really looking for, then they can get you the specific information you need so to enable you to make a decision if Costa Rica is the right investment for you. As I mentioned, in Nature Walk specifically, we have very limited availability of some particular plots of land. So if you are interested in Nature Walk, please let us know as soon as possible, and make sure that you know, the early bird catches the worm in all of these cases, and make sure that you get the best lots for yourself. So thank you very much for attending, everybody, and I hope that you found this webinar of assistance and of use. Thank you again, and have a great day.